what is the third phase now? Let's go one at a time from here.
So the third biological law is the ontogenetic system of cancer and cancer equivalents. So that's the chart behind me. And so this is the yellow, the orange, the red. This is how the tissues operate in the conflict. And so we have different tissue layers that evolved during different periods of our biological ancestry. So the yellow is the oldest group. And so this is the most basic type of tissue. It's the endodermal tissue, and it's controlled from the brainstem. And so you want to think of like the most basic organism that exists in the ocean. What does it do? It's not worried about territory. It's not worried about its self-esteem. All it's doing is taking in nutrients, expelling nutrients. It's breathing in some way. It's bringing in oxygen, and then it's reproducing itself. That's all it does. And so that's the endodermal tissue. Those are the endodermal organs in our body that have endodermal tissue, like the lungs, like the lung alveoli, like the digestive system. And so these tissues, what they do when they're in conflict is proliferate. So there is cell growth during the active phase. And so if you, for example, a colon tumor, so if you have an indigestible morsel conflict, something that you can't process, something you cannot digest, the body says, we have a program for that. Let me produce extra digestive juices to help you to break down this thing that you cannot digest. That's how this operates. And so there's going to be an impact in the brainstem, and the cells are going to proliferate. And then during the healing phase, these cells get decomposed and broken down with bacteria that we'll talk about with the fourth biological law. So that's the yellow group. Then we have the orange. The orange is the mesoderm, and the mesoderm is divided into old mesoderm and new mesoderm. And so the old mesoderm it operates similarly to the endoderm, and it's controlled from the cerebellum. And so this is the protective layer. So Dr. Hammer, he describes when, an organism moves from the water onto the land, it needed an extra layer of protection because now there's, you've got sun, the UV rays that we need protection from. We're moving along surfaces, so we needed protection. And so that's the dermis, the deep layer of skin, the protective layers around our organs, the pleura, the pericardium. And so these tissues also proliferate during the active conflict. They become thicker. They produce this protective shield, this barrier to help protect you. So the conflict theme there is feeling attacked or feeling soiled in some way. And so again, cellular growth, proliferation during the active phase, and then cellular decomposition during the healing phase and breakdown. And so, yes, the old mesoderm and the endoderm, they operate similarly. Then we move into the new mesoderm. And so the new mesodermal tissues are controlled from the cerebral medulla, and they operate, they are the connective tissues of the body. So they are what gives us structure and form. And the theme of the types of conflicts associated with the new mesodermal tissues is self-value and integrity and, a feeling of self-esteem or self-worth. And when we have a diminished self-worth, when we don't feel enough, not strong enough, I'm not fast enough, I need to be faster, I need to be better, I need to be more well-equipped to handle this situation. What happens during this phase is there's loss of tissue. So there's cellular erosion of the mesodermal tissue during the active conflict, followed by cellular restoration during the healing phase. You know how they say after you break a bone, it's the strongest bone in your body. It's that kind of thing. And so if you're feeling like a bad mother, so your child, or you let them down in some way, and you're feeling like a bad mother, your shoulder is associated with relationships. And if you're a right-handed woman, your left shoulder is associated with your mother or your child. And so if you're feeling, you're just racked with guilt and you're feeling so bad, your body interprets that as, I need to be stronger, I need to be bigger, I need to be more well-equipped. And again, the body has this biological language, and the only way it can help you is to make your shoulder more robust, make it stronger, make it more capable of handling this relationship. And so there's cell loss during the active phase, and then there's cell restoration, and then your shoulder becomes stronger. But when you're in the healing phase, it feels like, oh my goodness, what have I done to my shoulder? You're achy and you're sore, but that's your body building you up from the inside out. Now we have the ectoderm. And so this is the most recent type of tissue, and this is controlled from the cerebral cortex. So this is now we're dealing with territory, and we're dealing with, sexual relationships. We're dealing with separation. And these types of conflicts during the active phase, there is erosion, there's cellular loss. So for example, a separation conflict. You are missing your mother. A child gets put in daycare and they're missing their mother. And so during the active conflict, there is erosion. There's loss of ectodermal tissue cells. So like the skin loses cells, and there's numbness. There's numbness and there's memory loss. Because, when you, it's easier to forget the thing that you're missing than it is to remember, oh my goodness, I miss my mother. I miss my mother. And so there's memory loss to help you forget your mother. I remember when I was a kid, someone told me that, cats, if they lose their kittens, they forget about them. And they'll, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, but it's functional. It's biologically functional because it's harder to remember the thing that you're missing. And so people who, kids who have ADD or ADHD and they're just, forgetting things, or, elderly people who have dementia, separation conflicts. It's easier to forget the thing that you're missing than it is to remember it. And then also that cellular loss, that numbing of the skin. Then when the conflict is resolved, you have itchy, red, inflamed skin. When you have it, all inflammation is always healing. That's when the body is in that restoration phase. And so that's how the ectodermal tissues operate. And this is how, for you use it as this compass. You go, okay, well, I've got a symptom, something abnormal is happening in my body. And so you have to narrow it down. What tissue type are you dealing with? What organ is having the symptom? And then you map out, okay, well, it's the connective tissue. It's my, it's my muscle. It's my joint. It's a gland. It's a swollen gland. You'll be able to narrow down the tissue type, how it operates, and where you're at in the process with the third biological law.